am so excited this week to welcome my friend and accountability partner, Elizabeth Keiper-Aguirre, to the show. Elizabeth is a certified master wellness coach, speaker, and owner of WellKind School and Life Purposely Coaching. With over a decade of experience in education and personal development, she helps people prioritize well-being without guilt through small, meaningful shifts that create lasting change. Elizabeth believes compassion is a superpower. It's one that heals, connects, and transforms how we show up in the world. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Liz. I am so excited to be with you today. I was so looking forward to this.
Yeah, me too. And, as I was coming up with like an opening question for today, I was kind of struck realizing that I actually don't know which came first. Did you become a business person first who became interested in personal development and coaching, or did they kind of simultaneously come together? I guess it's like a kind of a chicken and the egg question, which came first.
Yeah, great question. I was thinking about that because I often think about origin story, like where did this all come from? And, you know, if I really look back, I was purchasing personal development books when I didn't even know what personal development was. So, knowing that it's always been something that I was drawn to is by looking at my library of books I was collecting when I was a teenager. But I didn't read them. I would just collect them and maybe read the first chapter and think it wasn't for me or I didn't understand it. But when I really got into personal development, I pulled those books out and I was like, look, here's the signs. This has always been an interest area for me. But so I would say that's where it started. There's always been a pull. But after college, I got into social service. And then that's when I took over a family business after a few years of that. But actually, flipping back a little further, I was going to be a psychology major in college, and
Mm-hmm.
that didn't happen. So I think there was always something interested in something pulling me in under other people's stories and understanding the mind. That was always an interest for me. So did social service for a couple of years, and then I took over a family business, which was a private school for pre-K students in my hometown,
Mm-hmm.
which I never thought I would be back to my hometown. And I've been doing that for the last 15 years, working with young children and families. And along the way, after my third son was born, I really got into caring for myself because I had a moment where I was just thinking, if I don't do this now, it's not going to happen for me. It felt like a real turning point for me. I was exhausted, that common mom stuff that goes on in the early years, but got into fitness and got into coaching for a company that did online fitness programs. And then from there, it was just one thing after another. I read a personal development book. I flipped in the cover, or excuse me, flipped in the back to read about the author. And it said that they were a life coach. And I'm like, what's a life coach? So that was when I started the search and went for my certification and then started Life Purposely Coaching. So it's kind of a windy road, but I think everyone's story is that way in certain way. But I believe in synchronicities. So there were things that serve me now that I didn't understand then, why they would be a part of my story. So
I can relate to so much of what you said, like including getting all these personal development books and just reading a couple of chapters and not knowing, especially as a teenager or young adult, not really fully understanding everything in it. I was absolutely the same way. I mean, I just have to admire, like, take a moment to admire you for having that shifting moment when you were in the middle of already juggling a business and having kids and the family and like that. I mean, I had no idea before I also had a business and a family, like just how
yeah.
exhausting that is and just how essential it is to take that moment to find yourself again and just find those touch points of self-care again because we just we can get so lost, and I know it's sort of overused to say, oh, well, you can't pour from an empty cup, but you really can't. Like when you're
And
that depleted, there's just literally nothing left.
yeah, and it was another woman that pulled me up. So it was actually someone that I looked up to that said, why not you, why not now type of thing. And she was
Mhm.
just posting online, and it really hit me that day. And I had my 5-month-old on my hip, and I don't even know what time it was in the morning. And I was just, yeah, this is it. So just like spreading your message and using your voice, that's how I feel about never knowing who you're going to touch and how. So it's just about sharing real life experiences and normalizing things that we all go through. And yeah, that was my moment. And it really, yeah, it was a turning point, which I didn't know in the time. But looking back, that was really when I committed to myself.
Our sort of joint mentor, Raj Vasugi, he loves to quote Steve Jobs about how you can only connect the dots looking backwards.
Hmm.
And it's so true that when, whether it's personal or business changes that we're trying to make, it's like we can't really understand where it's taking us until we're already there, and
Hmm.
then can look backwards. And then hopefully we can help other people not have to like scramble around in the dark quite so much that we did.
Yep. Exactly. Yeah. And even that, that moment was a moment, but there were so many chapters after that with different people. You just mentioned our mentor. One of
Mhm.
those things, those were all points that just were touch points over the years. But even I don't know that I could have taken that information in a year before, because it was just
Yes.
little pieces, whatever
Yeah.
you're able to do at the time, whatever awareness level you have, that has been a really fun discovery, I think, over the last years, just that discovery process. So, yeah, so that's where I am currently, and I feel there's so much more to come.
I know for a fact that there is that we've had enough conversations. I know that you're going to like explode in the second half of this year with exciting stuff coming out. But I did
Stay
want to
tuned.
ask you how the self-development piece has impacted your business person self, because you go to work and you're a boss.
Yeah.
And, and how, like, has it changed the way you interact with employees or how you manage your business? And certainly having a service-oriented business that, you're interacting with children and customers and families all the time. Like, what's that impact been like?
It's been everything. I really truly believe that you only go as far as you're willing to grow. And
Mhm.
that has been part of my journey. I look back to when it was 2009 when I stepped out of this social service industry. And I thought, I'm going to own a business. I'm going to have all this free time. I'm going to have, I'm going to be able to travel and do all those things. And yeah, that wasn't part of having a new business. And but what I love about it is being able to develop as we go. And I do believe that everything that I've been able to take on for myself in the way of development has positively impacted my business tenfold. So I do have a coaching approach to
Mhm.
my employees, and I always have. It's just been a natural part of how I interact with others, but it's taught me so many things, and all of that has helped me grow the business over the last 15 years. But yeah, every day I try to infuse what I learn into practical application. So I'm definitely someone who reads something and has to share it. I have to share it immediately. And that's how I integrate it in my learning. And I think that's what's been able to help keep things fresh for me and my employees. I have employees that have been with me for the 15 years, and I have employees that have just started in the last 6 months. And I definitely feel that they've gotten different versions of me, which is natural. And I'm okay with that as we grow and change. And that is just letting go of those former versions and being okay with it without shame or feeling like you wished something would have been different in the way that you handled something as a business owner 10 years ago. I truly believe that I handled it the best I could then, and now I'm handling it the best I can now. So it has positively impacted because I've been able to take all of the highlights and fold them into different aspects of the business.
I just love that so much. And it actually just opens to the theme that I was hoping to kind of coalesce a bunch of questions around, which is, I guess, compassion, and especially self-compassion, but like compassion as a whole. So, I mean, we are talking about how your longtime employees have seen different versions of yourself and how you've changed and grown. Like, would you say that when you look at yourself as a leader in your business, that compassion plays a role there as well?
Hugely.
Hugely, yeah.
Yeah, hugely. I think one of the things that I've allowed myself to do is, and we've learned this together, is not become so emotionally involved in things that it changes my behavior or it totally overtakes my spirit. And I think when you're new into anything and in the business world, you can take things personally, and you can and that's another person's actions can be taken personally. Or if someone would leave and take another job opportunity, I took it personally. Like, I must
Right.
not be good enough as a leader. I must not be able to grow them and show them how they can grow with the business. And so I definitely took those things personally, and I was beating myself up about those things. And over the years, just learning about compassion, which goes back to what you were saying, taking care of yourself first. Compassion is taking care of yourself first. I truly believe that self-compassion means giving yourself what you need in order to be the best that you can be to others. And there is no best unless you've taken care of yourself. And your best is different every day. That's something that I just said to one of the team members the other day, is just, maybe your best is going to be different this school year. And that's okay, because you have other things going on. It doesn't mean that you're not giving your best. It just means that it looks a little different than last school year because you have other things on your plate that are important to you. So that's a way of being kind to ourselves. And as I've been able to build that habit, because it is a habit of being kind to yourself, I've been able to really achieve a peace that I had not had access to before, an inner peace and a calm and an assuredness about taking the decisions that are the right ones for me in this moment, and not doing a lot of spiraling, which was easy to do in the past. And it creeps up, but I know what to do with it now. So that's a big difference, is how I treat myself.
I think for a lot of this, or at least for me, I can say that the, the taking things so personally and ending up spiraling, it's just such a, it can feel like such an automatic habit that
Mhm.
we have. And I find it really interesting and intriguing and curious to look at self-compassion as a way of interrupting those like automatic scripts or habits that we have in our
Mhm.
head. Because I think so often we see, these like influencer people who are all like hustle and grind, and you got to push through it, and you have to work
Yeah.
Saturdays, and like it's all of that kind of like very assertive kind of energy. But it feels like that is just a way of pushing yourself to burnout, if you're not finding that peace inside. And I have to say, I think I'm still like very much working on finding that peace myself. But have people given you feedback on that they've noticed that you're more calm, that you're more uh, purposeful in your decisions or anything like that?
I definitely get that a lot, is that you're laid back and you're calm in the way that you carry yourself. And it is true. I do have a calmness to the way I handle things. I get revved up just like anybody else does, though,
Yeah.
that's for sure. And if you ask my kids, they'll say I get revved up. They know how to rev me up. But yeah, it's just a decision now. I think that's a difference, is that I didn't realize that I had an active role in how um, I made meaning of the things that were going on, and taking a more proactive approach, a measured approach instead of a reaction, has been
Hmm.
huge for me. And yeah, I like to think about it when I'm working with clients. What I like to point out in this area of self-compassion is, we have sympathy, which is feeling for someone. If someone tells you something and you're like, "Oh, I feel for you," and you
Yeah.
just kind of, you feel sympathy towards them. And then we
Yes.
have empathy, which empathy is actually being able to feel it in your body for them, and a lot of empaths empathize with others, and it cripples their ability um to act because they get lost in the feeling. So I do feel like I got lost in feelings before,
Hmm.
and I would feel sorry for myself, and look at it through the eyes of like what someone else did to me. um Compassion is empathy in action. That's how I
I
see it.
love
So it's
it.
being able to
Yeah.
feel what the other person's feeling, or what you're feeling, and then doing something about it, taking action. So whereas empathy might be, if I give like a garden metaphor, you see a wilted flower and you're sad because oh, that flower, look at the flowers just all wilted and sad. Where compassion is being sad and then watering the flower. It's like, I'm going to take an
Right.
action to
Right.
try to be there. And you can't always fix it. It doesn't mean that flower is going to perk up and come back to life, but you gave it a tool, you gave it a chance. And that's what I think we have to do for ourselves. We have to use all the tools that we have to give ourselves the best chance to live a full and healthy life. So when I think of compassion, it's about feeling the feeling and
Hmm.
acknowledging whatever I'm going through, but then deciding, what am I going to do with this? Am I going to just wait on it? Maybe sometimes it's just, okay, this is going on and I'm acknowledging it, but I'm not ready to take an action step. And that is a compassionate way to treat yourself, because it goes against that burnout culture you're just mentioning.
Yeah.
Just go, just push. It doesn't matter. You're exhausted, you know? Um, or I just take a response in the moment and say, this is what I'm feeling. This is what I'm going to do to pull myself out of it. And it might be going for a walk. It might be calling a friend. It might be taking a nap. It might be, just reading a book, something that fills me up and brings me joy. It might be spending a little time with one of my children, playing a game. There's just something that's going to get you over that point where you're stuck. And that, I feel like, is what we could all use. It's looking at the world through that lens really would benefit all of society, because we're looking at it like, what do I need right now, or what might this person need? And we can ask that. We can say, what can I do for you, or how best can I support you? And we can apply that same question to ourselves. What do I need right now? And that probably has been the biggest tool that I have used that has been life changing, because I've been started to get okay with asking myself the question and taking on the answer and doing whatever that answer is. So if I need a nap, I'm not feeling bad about myself because I didn't get that email done. There's a thin line there. I'm not pushing through and doing something that is going to burn me out. I'm going to fill my cup first and then do that thing. So that is a shift. And I think that's what gets you to this point of calm and making decisions from a place of inner knowing as opposed to externals.
Before our recording this morning, I was thinking that there's kind of like a Venn diagram of compassion and self-trust
Mm-hmm.
and vulnerability. I'm not quite
Mm-hmm.
sure what's in the middle, but it feels like sort of all three of those things kind of have to act together. And it's funny how, and I honestly am not sure if this is just something that we're taught as women, as girls growing up to, doubt ourselves, or if this is a more universal experience, but that we are kind of taught like, well, ask your parents, ask your teachers, ask your mentors, ask your advisors. And we're taught to ask everybody except ourselves
Mm-hmm.
what it is that we need. And so, how have you found like developing that sort of self-trust? Like, even if you knew, just to take the simple example of needing a nap, even if you knew that you just had to put work aside for a minute and lie down, did you at the beginning, did you find yourself kind of even doubting that this is what I need, like just feeling disconnected from it?
For sure. And
Mhm.
I think one of the ways, I don't know if you felt this way too, Liz, but I feel that one of the ways I heal myself is through parenting in a different
Mhm.
way, kind of parenting in the way that I needed to be parented. So some of the things that you're talking about is empowering young children, and I'm able to do that with children and families and also my own,
Mhm.
saying things like, I trust that you'll be able to figure this out. I know you're capable. Sounds like you have a problem with so and so. I know you're capable. Why don't you think of a few possible solutions and we can talk about them if you want? Or instead of just breaking it up when the brothers are at each other's throats or something like that, it's like,
Yeah.
it sounds like you have a problem. Let's try to work it out. I know you're capable. And
Mhm.
I think if you think back to childhood, it'd be like the adult taking the toy away from us and just saying, that's it, as opposed
Yeah.
to, you guys have something going on. You both want this. What can we do about it?
Mhm.
So I think that's helped me being able to utilize those tools. And then it's allowed me to see, how does that work for me too? How do I approach problem solving for myself? And you do have to set boundaries and tell people around you what you need. And that
Mhm.
is vulnerable, and that is, trusting in yourself. And I think personal development does that for you because you are peeling back layers, getting to know yourself. You are asking yourself the reflective questions a lot. And when you do that on a consistent basis, you start to get some answers that are very helpful and can help to see patterns. And if you have people in your life that you trust and are close to, even if you have one person, you feel comfortable enough to say, hey, this keeps coming up for me. Is there anything you notice from your perspective that might be helpful for me working through this? But I definitely had to tell my husband, I am noticing that I need a nap. I don't know what it is, but Saturday around noon, I just start to go into a shutdown when I am home. And so I'm going to go upstairs and take a 30-minute nap and to set, my timer or whatever. And
Mhm.
yeah, I had to advocate for myself because he wasn't like, hey, it looks like you need a nap. Go, go take a nap. But what would happen if I didn't? I would get irritable. I would just be, less pleasant to be around. So I think once we start to advocate for ourselves regularly, people start to understand that. And if they don't, sometimes we have to point it out for them. Do you notice that I'm different when that happens? Like sometimes we have to
Yeah.
connect the dots for others.
Yeah.
So yeah, I definitely felt weird about it. I remember I was seeing a homeopath at the time for something, and I told her that I'm tired. She is the one that said it. I said, I'm find myself tired on Saturday. She's like, do you take a nap? And I was like, no, I hadn't thought about that. And she's like, take a nap and see how it goes. And that was where it started. And yeah, and I don't do it all the time, but
Mhm.
it's a tool, it's an option. So definitely felt weird. And I felt like I had to explain myself, like, I'm going to do this for me. And, but I've gotten comfortable with that. And I tell my kids, this is me time. This is what I need for myself. And I feel good because they're all things that are helpful to me. I really think that when we're choosing things that are going to fill our cup, they need to be replenishing activities. Going
Yes.
out for
Yes.
girls' night can be replenishing, or it can be draining. And you have to
Mhm.
measure those things for yourself. When I go out, if I go out with friends, do I stay out too late? Do I drink more than I normally do, or drink when I don't drink at all and go to bed really late and wake up just feeling depleted? Or am I going and just enjoying and listening to some live music, whatever it might be, coming home feeling recharged? So I think we need to try on different ways to take care of ourselves and realize it is not a one size fits all. My girlfriends, we just got together and we all agree. We were home at 10. We got back to the hotel room at 10 and we were going to bed, and we were so happy with that. And that's just where I am right now in life. And that was not, where I was 15, 20 years ago, but it's an evolution.
Another part of self-compassion is just being kind of at peace with where we are in our lives. I find, at least as I get older, it's so easy, and I've seen people around me do it too. It's so easy to say like, oh, when I was 25, I could have been out with my friends until 2 in the morning or 3 in the morning, and I could have been up at 7 for work. It would have been no problem. And now, like, I'm tired at 10 and everything aches, and like it's easy to just kind of, again, with these like almost automatic habits of the way we engage in self-talk, that
Yeah.
we can like compare to, well, how was my life before kids, or how was my life before I owned a business, and this was easier then, instead of saying, yeah, but like this is really awesome now.
Yeah,
And
for
yeah,
sure.
yeah, and I think I don't know if you have any thoughts about that, but like I think it's just we kind of dress it up as being nostalgic, but like in a way it is, but in a way it's also just how we kind of talk down on ourselves, and kind of dismiss like where we are now and what we're doing that's really good.
Yeah, I think a lot about this because if if you think about the time, an easy one is not having kids and then having a
Yeah.
child, right? So you had all of this time, we could say, and nothing to take away from your sleep and things like that. Were you feeling amazing and at your best all the time and on a cloud? I wasn't.
No, I
I was
wasn't.
thinking about, "Oh my gosh, I have to do this and that," and, I don't know. I feel that we're never, unless we mindfully take this on as a way of being, we're always wishing away our present, and we're
Yes.
romanticizing something from the past. So, oh, I remember in high school I did this, or in college I did this. And we're only looking at the highlights, but the day to day was hard. And
Hmm.
what I find is we just keep changing our hard. So I have, a lot of some of my employees are going back to school, and they're, currently students, and they're just thinking, oh, they say things such as, oh, when this class is over, then I'll have all this time. And I
Yeah.
say all the time, I say, yes, you're in a tough moment right now, but we tend to fill our time. So we just switch hards, right? So you're in this class now. Maybe you have a child, then that's your new hard. Or maybe you switch jobs, that's another hard. Or a family thing comes up that takes your time, aging parents. There's so many things. I think it's a sneaky story that we tell ourselves that we're going to get to a point where it's going to be easier or something like that. I think it's about navigating what we have with the tools that we have. And it's also a mindset shift, as you alluded to, because
Yeah.
we can buy into that. I know a friend of mine said, when I was in my 40s, everything just went downhill. And I'm definitely noticing changes in myself, but I refuse to believe that it all goes downhill, because that's within my control of how I'm seeing things. So yeah, maybe I couldn't, I can't drink all night, get up and go to work, but I also don't want to do that because I have
Mhm.
other priorities in my life now. So I think it's about, if you are looking back on your past and thinking, I wish I was more like that, then you're probably glamorizing that experience in your mind and maybe asking yourself some deeper questions like, what about that did I enjoy? Oh, I had freedom to choose. Okay, how can I build a little more freedom into my life right now?
Mhm.
What's something that I can do now that will give me that I feel like I'm lacking or that I had and no longer have now? And it could be simple things. It's always simple things. And my methodology is bare minimum effort, maximum impact. So choosing your bare minimum things that fill you up and help you to show up as the person that you want to every day. So, yeah, maybe my knees felt differently, all those different things, but I have an opportunity now with the knowledge I have now, with the life experience, with maybe the stability in certain ways I might have, or things feel a little more settled in certain ways than they did before. So it's a give and a take. It's not an all or nothing. And I think we need to take where we are and take an inventory and figure out, what about the past could we incorporate now, if anything, that would help keep us moving forward, like connecting with a passion that we maybe let go. Maybe we always painted or played tennis. Maybe that's just something we need to incorporate once a week or once a month. And that would be giving us that taste of what we enjoyed in our current reality, which I think is always an opportunity to be our best time of our lives.
There's so much wisdom in everything that you just said. And I mean, it's so true that we can get so busy and feel like, especially in these middle years, just feel like everyone's relying on us for everything. And that
Mhm.
we just, if we like to paint when we were younger or dance or whatever it is, that we just kind of forget. I remember thinking back to when I was growing up and the parents that I interacted, like parents of my friends when I was
Mhm.
growing up, and I'm now their age, right?
Yep.
And
Mhm.
which is just bizarre in and of itself. But I would look at them, and it didn't matter if they were stay-at-home parents, if they worked outside the home, whether they were married or divorced or whatever. They they all looked, in my view as a kid at the time, they all looked tired and
Mhm.
harried and kind of beaten down, and for many of them it was, and certainly not all of them, there were some that definitely took a lot of pride and time in taking care of themselves, but like a lot of them, you could tell that they were just surviving. They were just in
Yeah.
that survival mode. And my parents too were in that
Mhm.
survival mode. And like now I'm here and
Yep.
I've been in that survival mode, and and it really feels like if you don't find those moments, if you don't make those moments a priority where you're doing something that helps you relax, or doing something that brings you joy, or doing something that you like, you really, you don't just like lose your spirit, like you lose your health as well, I think.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. Yeah, and I think it's important to note, and I think about that often too, because my oldest is 14, so he'll be probably driving within the next year or two,
Oh
and I
boy.
think to myself, Oh my goodness. I am currently driving people around. I remember being in the car with the parent driving around before the licenses happened and thinking, I'm that parent now. And you just thought that they had it all figured out and you thought
Yeah.
that they, had so much wisdom, and it's interesting to be in that position. But I think an important thing to know when taking care of yourself, and I agree with you 100%, it is the most important thing. It affects your health in so many ways to not be living in alignment with what you truly want for yourself. And I don't think we spend enough time figuring out what we want. And it's not one thing. It could be one thing, like I want more peace in my life, and then that is a big umbrella for many things that would bring that into life. But I think one important thing to note, which could be scary, and there has to be self trust involved in this and looking at the long game, is that when we start to make changes for ourselves, it can be difficult on others around us, even when they're positive changes. And I think just knowing that is helpful because it helps us react in a way that is understanding and is compassionate towards the person that is maybe giving us a little pushback for maybe signing up for that weekly dance class, that or taking a paint class once a month. And the reason is, and I think it's always important to know the why behind things. When we start to change, even in a positive way, we are threatening the status quo version of ourselves that that person has become comfortable with. So that it could be your loved one, it could be your spouse, it could be your parent, it could be a close friend. And they may just feel this shift in you, and it can be unsettling for others. And they can really, what they're trying to do is figure out if they fit into this new you, which of course they do. I mean, most often they do, sometimes maybe not, but generally they do. And it has nothing to do with them and everything to do with you and what you're wanting for yourself. But it can disrupt the people closest to you. And I don't know what book I read this in, but it said, if you make a commitment to your health and you start running every day, you might change the way you look physically and start to feel great. And you may not get one word of that feedback from those around you, but then you go to the gas station and the person that pumps your gas says, "You look great." And you're thinking, why don't the people around me that love me give me that type of feedback? And they see you every day. So that's one thing. So they're maybe not noticing it in the same way, or they're a little uncertain about what this means for them. It could be putting something in their face that they don't want to confront right now. I don't want to be thinking about that, my health, or, and that could be triggering for someone else. So it's just important to mention that it's not all I'm committing to being compassionate with myself and meeting my own needs. There could be a little bit of a backlash. And I think it's important to just get it out and open and talk about it. Hey, there's some things I'm going to be changing about myself and I'm working on it. And let me know if something comes up, we can talk about it. And knowing that it might not all be smooth sailing before will help you navigate your feelings that are going to come up, because you might be thinking, why don't they just realize that this is best for me, or why are they pushing back, or something like that. And that usually surprises people, catches them off guard, because they're expecting a different reaction from the people they love.
Yeah, I'm so glad you brought that up because I've noticed, particularly when I started with my first coaching program as a student. And at that time, we had access to, I think it was like 4 or 5 times a week, we could have like daily live calls with people that would answer our questions. And one of the questions that kept coming up over and over and over again, because there'd be different people on the calls and they'd all come with the same thing, is, what is my husband going to think? What is my wife going to think? What is my brother-in-law going to think of me doing this? Or they don't support this, or they don't. they don't understand what I'm doing. And I mean, I think on the one hand, we can't just decide to shrink away from what we need to do because someone else is having an issue or isn't understanding, but we also can't just say, well, tough and
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
steamroll over people. So I'm wondering in your own coaching of clients, I know you focus on wellness coaching, and that can be, especially if that involves like diet changes and exercise changes, or incorporating like a meditation practice, or whatever the person needs at the time. Like those things can be very triggering for somebody who's not at the same spot for themselves and isn't ready to take on those things. So I'm wondering how you help your clients navigate that.
Yeah, so everybody is different, but it could certainly affect your closest relationships. I think it's important to be very clear on why, and that's one thing that we work on immediately is why are you doing this? Why is it important to you? Because we call that our anchor, our anchoring thoughts or
Yeah.
anchoring desire. And we need to get crystal clear on not just what we want, but why we want it.
Mm-hmm.
And it needs
Mm-hmm.
to get really, really, really whittled down to the root of it. Because if it's just, I want to lose 5 pounds to feel good on vacation, usually it is so much bigger than that. So
Yeah.
um, that could be a very short term goal, but we tend to not commit at the level that it requires when it's not a deep enough reason to why. So for me, in my health journey, one of the really important parts of that for me was I want to have a long, healthy life and be
Mm-hmm.
very active with my kids, be able to do things that my mom couldn't do because of some of the health issues that came up in her life. And so that is my anchor. That is why I do what I do for myself, because I want to use all the tools and everything that's in
Right.
my control to
Yeah.
be a healthy mom. But when it comes to others and how you might teach them or tell them, suggest what they might do, I think it's important to get the muscle as strong as you can first. You don't want to be pulling others in. You can invite them in. So you can, if you are changing your eating patterns, you want to do it in a way that is not overhauling the whole family. Like
Yeah.
everyone's going to do this now. I'm doing this now. And so are you. That's not going to go over well. And there's going to be a lot
No.
of pushback there. So
Yeah.
it's about figuring out, and again, going back to the small steps, I'm not into overhauling anything. So if someone
Mm-hmm.
comes to me and says that they want to eat healthier, we start very basic, like add a vegetable to every meal, and that's just the one thing. And once we get strong on that, then we add something else because we want long-term lifestyle changes. We are not looking for a quick fix. So yeah, I could give you a meal plan and say, do this for, 2, 3, 4 weeks. And if you stick to it, you will have results. But
Mm-hmm.
my philosophy is that I don't give any strategies out or any suggestions out that you cannot do for a lifetime, as long as you would want to do that. It's not like one of the things I say is you can't white knuckle your way to wellness. So you just can't be
That's so true.
holding to something, because that is just a temporary thing. And that's not, I think as women, we really need to look for those long-term solutions.
Hmm. Yeah, I agree. If you just say, well, like I'm going to do this exercise program for 6 weeks. I'm going to take this 6 week class and that's it. Or, I'm going to go on, I don't know why the cabbage soup diet's coming up in my head, but like if you go on something like the cabbage soup diet, like you cannot maintain those long term, and then you're left without that scaffolding in place
Mhm.
to kind of maintain the change and to keep it going. So I think that's a great approach to just making sure that if people are going to invest in making changes in themselves, that they're not setting themselves up for backtracking later on.
Yes, the roller coaster that
Yeah.
I was like a frequent rider
Oh,
on
me
for like,
too.
the first 20 plus years of life. So, yeah, I turned in that pass and I don't have an annual ride pass anymore. And that's been great.
Good. I just want to give space. Is there anything about compassion, about your journey so far as a business owner and a coach and a parent that you feel that you really want to share before we get head into the closing?
Yeah, I think one of the things that is really helpful is to really truly believe that people are doing the best they can with the information that they have right now. And
Mhm.
that's a big one. But I do believe that that helps you see others. If someone is rude to you in the store, if your first thought is, what's wrong with that guy? Um,
Yeah.
there's a difference between what's wrong with that guy to, I wonder what's going on with that guy, and
Mm-hmm.
it's a different
Mm-hmm.
tone. And there has to be a knowing that you don't act that way. You and I don't act that way because we have maybe an inner peace that that person is not experiencing. So
Mm-hmm.
I think compassion really comes from that place of feeling, wow, it feels really bad to feel that edgy and stressed and to act that way because I've done it and I know how it
Yeah.
feels. I know it doesn't feel good. So being able to relate and then also know that we can take it a step further and just hold space for the person by not being reactive and thinking, is there anything I can do for you? Or trying to um, give them the benefit of the doubt. And that may sound pie in the sky and everything's great and you're just walking around town being, a light to everyone else. That's not what I mean. I mean, just at a most basic level, trying to put yourself in the other person's shoes and imagining that a person that feels good about themselves and in their life would not be acting that way. So
Yes.
just knowing that there's so much going on for them and offering a little bit of compassion. And maybe that's just a smile. Maybe that's just a letting it go and not
Mm-hmm.
getting involved in a conversation that's just fruitless. I think there's all of that is just something that if we were able to take that on as a way of being in society, I think that would really shift things in a better direction.
Yes, I fully agree. And I feel that's just so important right now with like everything that everyone's going through. I mean, you look at the world, people are going through things all the time, but I feel like collectively we're all kind of on edge. We're all concerned, we're all worried, and it's so easy for people right now to not show up as their best at every moment. And for us to have compassion for that, I think would be some much needed, soothing like balm for everybody and for ourselves too, so that we don't get caught up in other people's problems, frankly, that
Yeah.
we're able to have some space and say like, okay, something's really going on for this person. How can we best show up in this situation, whether that's just doing a full back off and like just
Yeah.
saying, okay, we're just going to let this go and I'm going to go this way. And
Yep.
you know or is it asking like, well, what does this person need right now? And maybe there's something that we can do that we haven't thought of. Yeah, and I like to think about, a lot of my work involves community building and building bridges and opening dialogue and opening conversations and just having like these like almost micro moments of being able to do that, just
Mhm.
in a momentary interaction with somebody is just it's so much more powerful than we give it credit for sure.
Yeah, I love how you said that. It's a soothing balm, I think, is
Yes.
just the key. And that doesn't excuse poor behavior. That's not
No, no.
saying that you're just, oh, you advocate when you need to advocate and you stand up for yourself and speak up for yourself. But I feel that you can do that in a way that is still relationship building in a
Mm-hmm.
lot of cases. Advocacy and self advocacy, it doesn't always have to be so hard and harsh. It can be in a way that's empowering. And I really admire you for your work and the way that you
Thank you.
do that for the world. So, yeah, you're a shining example of that. But I did want to. Some people might think, "Oh, I'm just giving you a pass to like for people to have bad behavior," and that's
No,
not what compassion is.
no, absolutely. And thank you. Thank you so much for the kind words too. Um, so I just have the 3, 2, 1 rapid fire questions, and I hope they're not putting you on the spot. It's 3 people we should be following or listening to, 2 books we should be reading, and 1 action step.
Okay, so I was this is there's so many. I would go in so
I
many different
know.
directions, but I'm going to try to keep it. Um, if it resonates, I don't know, but 3 people that I would follow. Um, for right now, for me, Dr. Mindy Pels is into women's health, so that's a big one for me right now. Dr. Mindy Pels. I really enjoy Mel Robbins. I
Mm-hmm.
like to listen to her podcast just because for the variety of guests. And in following her, I learn about others. And
Right.
I would
Yeah.
say the same for Lewis Howes. I like he brings on many different people from different backgrounds. And I think that helps just see who else is out there.
Okay. And 2 books.
Okay, so I'll say this. I think if I really truly think about it, The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle,
Mm-hmm.
um, that book was one of them that I bought way before I ever read it. And then when I did read it, it was the right time. And I definitely had an internal shift when I read it and I read
Mm-hmm.
it again. So it really that was a shift book for me, but I do think timing is important. So what I'll say on
Mm-hmm.
that is pick up the book and allow yourself to have it in your home and know that you might not be ready for it when you first
Mm-hmm.
pick it up, but don't give up on it because when you are ready for it, it's pretty amazing. And then the other one, which I'm surprised that's coming up for me because there's so many books that I love, but one that turned things for me in a really dark time was Conversations with God by Neil
Oh,
Donald Walsh,
okay.
excuse me.
Kneel down.
And
Yes.
yeah, and the reason why it did is because I was at a real turning point and I purchased that book right before. I don't know why. It just I just purchased it. And the first chapter, it talks about choosing fear or love. Those are our 2 choices in life when we're making a decision. And at that point, I needed that message so much. And I chose love. And everything was different because of that. And I think if I didn't have that paragraph in my life, if I didn't read those words at that time, I would have done a fear spiral. And
Mm-hmm.
even though I definitely dabbled in fear during that difficult time many, 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 many times, I kept that phrase, I kept that intention in my mind.
Mm-hmm.
I'm
Mm-hmm.
choosing love. I'm choosing love. And it was painful and it was heartbreaking and it was all the things that make you feel like it's never going to be okay or better. Um, that sentence is really what got me through probably the most difficult time in my life. So I have to say that book for that reason.
For sure. Absolutely. Yeah. I haven't read it, but I've heard interviews with Donald Walsh, and he's so lovely. Like he's
Yeah.
and so I can imagine his books are just infused with that personality and that caring for people too.
Yeah. And just the first part, there's many parts. And
Mm-hmm.
it was the part one of the book that I read. I
Mm-hmm.
did get the other ones and I didn't have the same. Again, I do think that there is a synchronicity that happens. So having those books around and just trusting yourself that when you feel the urge to
Yeah.
pick one up, it's for a reason.
Yeah. Okay. And one action step for people.
So I think in looking at the lens of compassion would be just start asking yourself, what do I need right now? And if you are in a relationship, I would share that with the other person and say, this is a question that I'm going to be asking myself. And if you remember, please ask me that question too, or preface your interactions with me with that thought in mind. And because I tell my husband, if I am all kind of worked up, I need you to be calm, to not get worked up with me. And it's kind of what we were just talking about. So,
Yes. Yeah.
looking at it through that lens. And so I've asked him to, if he sees me and I'm being edgy and maybe I'm poking him, verbally poking him, like, why didn't you do this? Or why, instead of answering the actual words to the question that I'm asking, think to yourself, what does she need right now? And maybe that's a hug. Maybe that's a hot cup of tea. Maybe that's I'm going to do this so you have some time, like whatever it is. So I think it's powerful to ask ourselves that question, build the habit. What do I need right now? And if you have a close loved one that you interact with frequently, ask them to do that for you and say that you'll do the same for them.
That is such an important action step. I hope people will take that to heart and follow through. And I want to just say as well that if people are listening to this saying like, I could never tell my partner to do this, or I could never ask this of them, that I would say that, having some personal bravery around these things is also part of having compassion. Because
Yes.
if we're stuck somewhere, if we're feeling depleted, we have to do something different than what we were doing
Mhm.
before.
Yes, for sure.
Yeah.
Yep. Be brave. You never know. You can be very surprised
Yeah.
with the reactions.
And finally, if people want to connect with you, where can they find you?
So, my website, lifepurposely.com. They can follow Life Purposely podcast, where it's just 15, 20-minute episodes on different topics that we deal with specifically as women, although it's not just for women. Those would be the two places. Instagram, Life Purposely Coaching. So any of those social media outlets.
Okay, great. Well, thank you so much for taking time to come and be on my podcast with me.
That was so much
This
fun.
has been so much fun, and I hope you'll come back and we can talk again.
I loved it. Thank you for inviting me. And this was a fun conversation. You're the highlight of my week. So thank
Oh,
you.
thank you so much.